The man splashed coffee on the hot engine and threw the newly bought phone into the boiling oil pan. He conveniently stole a hat and quickly turned into an ordinary person, hurriedly blending into the crowd and hiding in the small alley opposite. He vigilantly looked back, skillfully avoiding the eyes of passersby. Then he quietly sneaked to the back door of the big hotel. He threw away the hat and reached for the guest's car keys, finally went to a red Porsche car on the side of the road. However, he did not rush to act, but observed the flames rising from the car opposite. When all eyes were on that side, he calmly opened the car door and drove away in the stolen car. Immediately after that, he went around to the back door of a large building and hurriedly called 2 accomplices into the car. When everything was in order, he calmly drove out onto the road, but a police car was following closely behind, constantly honking to signal him to pull over. Now he had no choice but to obey. He slowly placed his driver's license on the dashboard, calculating how to deal with the unfavorable situation before him. Seeing the police officer with a gun approaching, he silently counted to 3 and gripped the steering wheel with both hands. The next second he stepped on the gas and sped away, swerving back and forth. Thanks to his skillful driving skills, he avoided the oncoming cars. Just as he reached the intersection, he collided with a truck passing by. However, at the crucial moment he still did not slow down but steered into the alley, but he was blocked by a car in the middle of the row. He hurriedly reversed, taking advantage of the police car not blocking him. He reversed and sped out of the alley. Then he stepped on the gas and weaved and disappeared at the end of the street. But unexpectedly the police appeared from behind and continued to chase. Just at this moment a noisy parade came. Fortunately, he managed to turn before the parade, while the police car behind was blocked at the intersection. Not long after, he drove into an empty lot and opened a trunk. He was about to take the bag of things when he hesitated. Because he was not a professional criminal, he only risked helping his friend because he was in financial trouble. The man's name is Gray, the owner of a small luxury car service company. But recently the company has been losing money. Even the last bank loan to save it has been rejected. Like many other middle-aged men, he faced double pressure both physically and economically. To escape from poverty, Gray's wife suggested moving to a smaller house to start over, but he resolutely refused. Because this place is full of beautiful memories of his lost son. In the blink of an eye it was his son's death anniversary, but he argued with his daughter. Life was indeed full of ups and downs. Fortunately, he still had his beloved car to escape the noise. But tonight the car window seemed to have something unusual. It seemed that the glass had been pried open. Sure enough, his old colleague Colin was waiting in the car. Unexpectedly, the way the two of them reminisced about the old days was also different. They drove wildly to the sea. At this time Colin asked Gray to help him with a small matter. He was supposed to pick up a package, but due to incorrect information, he caused the boss to lose a person. To atone for his mistake, he had to ask Gray. It turned out that when Colin went to jail, he took all the blame alone, which caused his girlfriend to marry his brother. This task is also very simple. Gray just needs to drive to and from quickly. He also earned a large sum of money from this. Clearly they had done similar heists before. Then Gray learned that behind this case was a non-African American boss nicknamed the Horse. It turned out that Colin was in debt to an international gang. He knew these people were not easy to deal with. It was best to stay away to avoid implicating his family. But thinking about his current predicament, Gray still agreed. So the next day he and Colin went to a restaurant with a strong African style, meeting the black brothers of the criminal group. Unexpectedly, the Horse knew him very well. The other party did not say many polite words, but directly started cooperation. Then his younger brother Zenzo gave him a new phone. The address has been sent there. Gray also received a shabby old car. Gray's task is very simple. Just pick up a fat guy. Then take him to the designated location and wait for the situation. Finally bring both the person and the goods back is done. The fat guy entered the building. Because it was the weekend there was almost no one here. Only Colin disguised as a janitor had been waiting for a long time. He followed the fat guy into an office. They tried to open the safe twice, but still couldn't open it. In a hurry Colin pulled out his gun. The fat guy hurriedly explained that perhaps the partner had changed the new password. Just call and ask. Finally the fat guy entered the correct password. As soon as Colin took the package out of the safe, Gray, who was guarding outside, suddenly noticed a police car rushing over. He immediately called Colin to tell him that there were police downstairs. Told the two to quickly take the stairs to the back door of the building. Then Gray carefully observed and aimed at a red Porsche car parked across the street. And that was the scene that took place in the head video. Under the protection of the bustling parade, the three finally returned to Gray's luxury car service company. Very quickly the Horse led his henchmen here. As soon as the other party arrived, he questioned why he had caused such a big commotion. At this time, Gray hurriedly explained that due to the emergency situation, he immediately destroyed the car and phone, so no one could find any clues. As for the items in the package, he had not seen what it was. Because he was just a deliver man, such professionalism made the horse feel that Gray was a cautious person, but the person who was not cautious was the fat guy. Clearly his phone call caused the partner to report to the police. But before the fat guy could defend himself, Zinzo struck him from behind. The scene completely shocked Gray. Then the horse took out 2 envelopes full of money. At this time, Gray understood that he could not escape from this quagmire. Gray was originally the small boss of a luxury car repair shop, but accidentally got involved in a gang's witness elimination operation. Gray only helped his friend as a driver for one day. The gang killed a lawyer who reported to the police right in his workshop. So the task of handling the body naturally fell to him and Colin. They packed the body all night, stuffed it into the trunk, then wiped the remaining blood stains on the floor, and finally burned all the blood-stained clothes of the two. Early the next morning, the two hurriedly drove to dispose of the body. But ironically, just at this time, Colin received a call from the parole officer. He forgot that today was his check-in day. He didn't want to go back to jail again, so Gray had to take Colin back to the yacht first. Before parting, he carefully disguised himself as a taxi driver and collected money to avoid police attention. As soon as he got home, Gray hurriedly cleaned out the freezer in the garage, then stuffed the wrapped body inside. He felt still uneasy, so he took a 100-pound sandbag and pressed it on the freezer lid. But not long after the police came to the door, it turned out they came to investigate the carjacking that happened yesterday. The police suspected it might be related to Colin. At this time, Gray was extremely nervous, but on the outside, he did not reveal any flaws. He just explained that although he was good friends with Colin, they had not seen each other for a long time. His wife seemed to sense her husband's abnormality, but unexpectedly, he made up a reason to cover it up. The next day, the two went to the abandoned amusement park again. This time, the body disposal encountered a big problem. Although they successfully threw the body into the lake, unexpectedly, the wheel got stuck. The two of them had an argument because of this. At this time, Gray's suppressed emotions finally exploded, because returning to this place, he suddenly remembered his son, who died a year ago. Fortunately, he finally regained his composure. It was time for him to step out of his grief. Just at this time, he accidentally found an abandoned roll of steel cable. So the two tied one end to the car, the other end threaded through the pulley on the iron frame to lift the heavy object up. Then the two cooperated. Finally, they pulled both the person and the car out of the mud. The horse's side was also not idle. His henchmen quickly investigated the matter of Gray's son's death. The news said that the boy was shot to death in a carjacking. So the girl Shimiso began to worry about the horse's strategy of using people. Just at this time, Gray and Colin returned to report the results. They had fulfilled their promise to secretly dispose of the body. Colin also received a worthy reward. However, Gray was kept alone by the horse. The other party wanted a calm and gentle driver like him. Before he could refuse, the horse said he was in a hurry to take his son home. They would talk on the way. So Gray replaced the old driver and gained the horse's complete trust. However, not long after he discovered that he was being followed by a black car, he immediately accelerated, but the other party was still close behind, then suddenly overtook. At this time, the horse in the car seemed to have a bad feeling and hurriedly hugged his son. The car in front quickly blocked the road. Immediately after, they found a sturdy pickup truck slowly approaching. The people in the car were wearing the same masks. Seeing this, Gray gripped the steering wheel. Before the other party acted, he stepped on the gas and sped away, then steered into the obstacle at the intersection, rushing forward to the left to escape. He thought he had escaped, but unexpectedly the car reported an error at this time. Even more unexpectedly, the enemy chased even faster. This time, they directly opened fire. This situation, if they continued, they would only have one way to die. So Gray had to drive into the nearest hiding place. Then he hurriedly got out of the car and picked up the child. In this critical situation, Gray took the initiative to take on the task of protecting the child. So when the horse fired back, he immediately hugged the child and ran out. Immediately after, the two ran into a cemetery. He hid the child first and then stuck his head out to observe, just in time to see the horse desperately running away because he was shot. At this time, the child heard the gunshots and couldn't control his emotions and wanted to run out. Although Gray had protected the horse's son, but at this time the boss was shot and fell to the ground. Just as he was confused and didn't know what to do, the police helicopter arrived in time. The assassins didn't want trouble and hurriedly turned around and ran away. Seeing this, Gray immediately ran over and shook the horse, who was unconscious, then helped him into the cemetery and fled. At this time, the child also came. However, the scene of the shooting would soon be investigated by the police. In this critical situation, Gray had no choice but to knock on the church door. the person who opened the door was the nun and whom he considered his younger sister. Before investigating who revealed the whereabouts, the horse suspected everyone. He not only did not trust, but even could not call his capable right-hand man. The son next to him did not understand and was scolded by him, but at this time he could only listen to Gray's arrangement. So Anne used her many years of nursing experience to stitch up the horse's gunshot wound. It was also during this time that she revealed her many years of close relationship with Gray. It turned out that it was thanks to Gray's desperate rescue many years ago that she was able to keep her life. Just after finishing the wound, another nun suddenly rushed in and discovered it, and hurriedly explained that as a nun, she could only fulfill all requests. Gray stepped forward to add that they had just been robbed by an armed group and had reported to the police. The police were on their way, but unexpectedly the nun had already seen the clues. At this time, Gray had to threaten and tell the truth and promised to leave soon. Immediately after, he called Colin. At this time, Colin was upset because his brother stole his girlfriend. After serving 17 years in prison, he discovered that his girlfriend was pregnant with his brother's child. At the same time, Shimiso discovered that her brother and nephew had suddenly lost contact. She immediately informed Zinzo to gather people to find them, immediately led people to force a confession from a henchman who knew the plan, and finally got the name Anton. No one knew that this mysterious Anton was the owner of a junkyard specializing in processing scrap cars. An assassin who returned to report also showed fear, because he could not have a chance to make a mistake a third time. So the assassin hurriedly returned to find clues, but at this time the scene of the shooting was completely sealed off by the police. Unfortunately, he unexpectedly saw the church in the distance. At this time, the police at the scene discovered Gray's shot car. Only a useless walkie-talkie remained in the car. So the police hurriedly went to Gray's wife and children, but they also did not see him all day today. At this time, Gray was walking in front of the church and saw the assassin sneaking around. He hurriedly returned to tell the horse to leave, but the other party wanted to take a gun and risk his life. Just as the two were arguing, the assassin used a gun to threaten and outside. Unfortunately, and had to deliberately make noise and do as he said. When the medical room door was opened, there was no one inside. But the assassin saw blood on the bed and refused to give up, then forced and to open the door of the room inside. But the inside was also empty. Gray rushed from behind and pushed him hard against the wall. The two of them got into a fight, but the assassin was young and strong, so Gray soon fell into a weak position. Gray had to hug the assassin and slam him into the glass, and behind him managed to take the giant holy cup and knock him down. Gray was finally saved. At this time, the horse still wanted to pull out his gun and kill people to silence them, but was stopped by him. Not long after Colin arrived, they tied the assassin to the trunk, then helped the horse and the child into the car and quickly left. So Gray and Colin took the horse and his son home safely. However, who revealed this secret travel route was still unknown. On the way back home, Gray could not help but suspect Colin. However, the other party became angry because of this. The two were friends for many years, so Colin did not bother to explain. Finally, the two old friends just smiled and let it pass. Then Gray returned to the repair shop and slept for a night. Unexpectedly, the next morning, as soon as he got home, he met an old acquaintance. This person was none other than Anton, the mysterious person who sent the assassin. Before meeting the gang boss, Gray wrapped thick rope around his wrist, then called Colin and told him, if he did not come out in half an hour, please arrange for his wife and children to escape. Finally, with a willingness to risk his life, he decisively stepped into the criminal's den. Gray planned to use thick rope to assassinate the horse. After passing the security check, Gray finally met the horse, who was tired from the wound. Unexpectedly, last night, Gray risked his life to save him, but today he wanted to take the other party's life. Because he was being threatened, if he did not kill the horse, his family would be killed. Unexpectedly, Zinzo had bribed the police, and they found a tracking device on the car that Gray was attacked in. Moreover, they changed drivers and routes every day, but only this time did a big incident happen. Faced with the undeniable questioning, Gray blamed Zinzo, who easily acted rashly. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, the horse spoke to break the deadlock. Because the important and urgent task at this time, in addition to finding the mole, was to eliminate the treacherous middleman named Anton. Thanks to the horse's trust, Gray finally had the opportunity to be alone with him. He hurriedly closed the door and then secretly took out the shoelace wrapped around his hand. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to act, he was interrupted by a series of knocks on the door. It turned out that the assassin could not stand the torture and confessed, so everyone came to the interrogation room to confront. But even more unexpectedly, the person the assassin confessed was Colin. He was stunned and did not know how to escape this dangerous den, then immediately explained that it could not be Colin. He he would never do such sneaky things. But all explanations became meaningless in the face of betrayal. He had to make a phone call, not long after Colin was tied up by the horse's henchmen. At this time, Zinzo was impatient and immediately wanted to execute the traitor on the spot, but he was stopped by the horse in time. However, this time, even more surprisingly, the horse invited everyone out, leaving only 4 people here to confront. Immediately after, he used a knife to slit the throat of the unlucky assassin, then forced Colin to tell the truth. Seeing this, Gray quickly accused Colin of not pulling him into this quagmire, then pretended to be angry and wanted to kill the friend betrayer with his own hands. Then he took the knife from the horse's hand. When he was about to act, he suddenly pointed the knife at him. But just at this time, Gray's phone rang. It turned out that his wife and daughter had escaped, because just now when his daughter went to the bathroom, she locked the door. This attracted the attention of a guard. Rose suddenly used an iron rod to hit the back of his head. When the remaining guard discovered the body of his companion, Gray's daughter heard 2 gunshots. So Gray knew his wife and children were safe and told the truth, because he had served 2 years in prison for Anton. So after being released from prison, he cut off relations and illegal activities with him. Moreover, the horse owed him a life, so now he wanted to use his life and Colin's to repay this debt. After hearing these words, the horse could only nod lightly, so Gray and Colin were temporarily allowed to live. As soon as he got home, he discovered a dead body lying in a pool of blood. Looking into the bedroom, he saw his wife and children hugging each other, trembling. Although his family seemed safe, but how would they escape Anton's revenge? That night, while attending the party, Anton suddenly discovered the horse coming to find him with a cane. The meeting of the two also revealed the truth of the story. It turned out that the horse's group was a gang specializing in organizing illegal African border crossings. Anton was a middleman who made money by charging exorbitant passport fees. Now that labor costs were increasing, the horse wanted to directly contact the source to eliminate Anton. He sent Colin to the lawyer to steal the passports, thereby pulling Gray, who needed money, into the gang's chain of interests. The feud between the two sides pushed Gray into the eye of the storm. Unexpectedly, there was a bribe taker in the police. The person who provided the tracking device to Anton was the police officer who handled the case of Gray's son being shot to death years ago. Now the truth about his son's death was about to be revealed. His wife killed someone in self-defense at home, but Gray prevented reporting to the police. Because the person killed was Anton's gang henchman, with the opponent's influence in both worlds, they would either go to jail or face revenge. After careful consideration, Rose put the dialed phone down. Very quickly, he found Colin. The two of them skillfully wrapped the body in plastic again, then carried it into Colin's car. The rest would be handled by him at the designated disposal site. Then the two brothers parted ways. Gray thought he could leave this time. Unexpectedly, the African gang threw him an envelope. But because he was in a hurry to escape, he had to temporarily put it in his pocket. Then he returned to this house full of beautiful memories for many years. Everywhere he went, he saw the image of his lost son. Finally, he inserted the paper cup into the superchlorine particles in the pool, then poured a mysterious liquid in and compared the time with the clock. He was satisfied to leave. Just a small device like this would erase all traces of murder here. Sure enough, at night, the superchlorine particles and the liquid reacted, causing a fire. The whole house was instantly engulfed in flames. At this time, Gray's family was in a motel dozens of miles away. Then Gray confessed to his daughter about his dark past when he had to go to jail. Rose also did not hide and took out a gun that she accidentally found in the bedroom. This gun helped her kill 2 gang henchmen. Gray was very worried when he heard this. His daughter was immediately agitated when she heard this. She blamed her parents for her brother's death. It turned out that that night, Gray discovered a group of thugs coming to the door, not long after he saw his son hurriedly wanting to go out. Clearly, he wanted to go out and cause trouble. He strictly stopped him, but unexpectedly was cursed by his rebellious son. Angrily, he suddenly punched him, but as soon as he punched, he regretted it. However, his son was extremely disappointed and walked out of the house. Unexpectedly, something happened that night. When he arrived at the scene of the crime, he only saw his son lying in a pool of blood, so Gray always regretted this. Now that his son had been dead for a year, the police still had no clues. However, what he found in the envelope later completely broke him down. It turned out that the horse's henchman had sent a recording. It sounded like it was the person who killed his son that night. How could Gray forgive his mistake? So he hurriedly drove to the horse's place. The reason the horse did this was because he had encountered a difficult problem that could not be solved. He was a human trafficker organizing border crossings who wanted to eliminate Anton, the middleman who made money by charging exorbitant passport fees but was chased by him. He planned to risk his life to fight, but the phone call later pushed him into the abyss. It turned out that the father in distant Africa not only remotely controlled the restoration of cooperation between the two sides, but also removed the horse from his position. He handed over all the work to Zenzo. Anton had invited the upcoming Attorney General of the state, forcing the Congress to legalize seasonal labor, making his business legal. The horse's illegal activities would be forced out of the market. At this time, Zenzo took over as boss and completely changed the horse's way of doing things. Chamorro could only follow his father's orders to assist in management. That night, a new group of workers arrived, although on the outside it was a happy and harmonious black family. But Zenzo secretly did not fulfill his contractual responsibilities. The living environment he provided was extremely dirty and shabby. Even sent new black girls to luxury hotels to work as prostitutes. So the horse's business had just declined and had become corrupt. However, he did not follow his father's order to return home, but with the support of his younger sister used a recording to arrange a meeting with Gray. His counterattack started from here. So Gray was caught in this vortex, because the horse promised to tell the perpetrator who killed his son. Gray wore down the car's frame number, then erased all traces that could be traced to his identity, then took advantage of the darkness to sneak to the junkyard to wait for a black market transaction to end. He wanted to kill the boss Anton inside. Taking advantage of the other party still talking on the phone, he quickly rushed forward and rammed into their car. Feeling still not satisfied, he immediately reversed and rammed directly again. At this time, Anton's crushed Mercedes car was on fire, as if the person inside was still dying. Then Gray staggered out of the car. Gray also wanted to let Anton die clearly, because the other party deliberately hid the truth about his son's murder, robbing him of the opportunity to seek justice. Saw the big flames erupting from the engine. Ignoring the other party's pleading screams, he turned around and left. In an instant, behind him turned into a sea of fire. The hatred that had tormented him for a year was finally relieved. But Anton's death had another reason, because last night he was very angry that the horse kept the recording without telling him. But unexpectedly, he had only just got this a few days ago. Because in the package that Gray and Colin stole, there were not only labor passports, but also a recording of a phone call that Anton had hidden. Clearly, this was the trump card that the other party used to threaten someone later. It was just that Gray adhered to professional ethics, so he did not discover it. But now to find out the killer, Gray had to help the horse do some big things as a return. For revenge, he had to agree to this deal. Immediately after, he went to the church to repent for his decision, although his younger sister and advised him not to act rashly. But no matter how God and outsiders saw it, he had to seek justice for his son's tragic death. Then he let Colin listen to the recording of the phone call. Unexpectedly, Colin advised him to report to the police and not take action himself. However, Gray's attitude was very determined and asked him to help him make a phone call no matter what. So Gray found an old acquaintance named Hector in the antique shop, but the other party advised him not to return to his previous life, because that would attract the attention of someone he shouldn't mess with. Clearly, Gray's action of finding someone showed that he would return to his old ways. This would definitely cause dissatisfaction from another gang boss in Chicago. He thought for a moment, but still decided to avenge his son's death first. Very quickly, he arrived in front of a house. He saw a tall blonde man come into his sights. He immediately confirmed the identification information that his old acquaintance gave him. Unexpectedly, the person who killed his son had a minor black child. At this time, Gray began to hesitate, but he still followed the blonde man's car to an old building. Then he took the gun and went in. Unexpectedly, this was a meeting for Alcoholics Anonymous. Even more unexpectedly, the group leader considered him a newcomer and invited him to sit in the group to share. Seeing the killer laughing and talking next to him, Gray emotionally recounted the painful story of losing his son. The blonde man was a little uncomfortable and went out to smoke a cigarette. Gray also went out, pulled the gun out from behind, and forced the blonde man into the car, then took him to his closed repair shop. Then Gray presented the recording of the phone call to confront him. The blonde man was completely stunned and told the whole story. It turned out that at that time he was drunk and also used drugs. Just as he reached the intersection, he saw someone prying open his car window. Angrily, he pulled out his gun. Only when he approached did he discover that it was a minor child. He hurriedly picked up the bullet casings and panicked and drove away from the scene. He did not dare to call an ambulance, but called his ex-wife because she was the district attorney. However, the other party gave Gray a phone number. Gray understood that this person was his old enemy Anton. But now the blonde man was also being tormented by his conscience. He shed tears and swore to go to the police station to surrender, because he was also a father with a wife and children at home. Clearly, Anton was the one who had to take responsibility for Gray's son's death. Previously, Anton was using money to support Laura's Attorney General campaign, because the other party called for a strong crackdown on illegal labor. In this way, he would legally completely control the horse, the African gang leader who was causing trouble. At the same time, the African gang specializing in black labor was also secretly fighting. The older brother, the horse, was transferred, while the younger brother Zinzo took power. But Shamaro always disagreed with Zinzo's way of doing things. She followed her father's instructions to recover all the passports that Gray had stolen and return them to Anton. Only then did she pick up the phone and report the whole incident to the horse. Although Zinzo had taken over as boss, he still kept the horse's son hostage. But at this time he was not easy to live, because just now a black girl who was forced to provide pleasure services suddenly escaped. To prevent his father from knowing about his mistake, he angrily ordered his henchmen to immediately go find her. That night, Shamaro attended casino owner Vernon's wine party. She said she could provide the other party with labor at a more preferential price and a higher discount. However, the casino had a previous agreement with Anton, so the owner was not very interested in Shamiro's proposal. But just at this time, Vernon did not see Anton come, but the horse. Vernon did not want to sit down and talk, but unexpectedly Shamaro sent a secretly recorded video. It turned out that it was his indecent photo with the black girl who had escaped. To preserve his reputation, he had to sign an agreement with the horse. Clearly, the horse's counterattack plan was successful, and he did not forget to deal with his always rebellious younger brother. Then he called Gray. At this time, Gray was holding a gun and repeating the horse's murder order to Zinzo. When the horse and Shamaro returned to the office, Gray was already waiting there. He did not kill Zinzo because he did not want to participate in the gang's internal struggle. He was tired of these debt repayment transactions. This time, he decisively threw the gun on the table to let the three brothers close the door and settle it themselves. However, he had not yet stepped out the door when he heard a gunshot from upstairs. At the same time, the black girl who escaped from the den resolutely chose to report to the police. But what would her fate be when facing a corrupt police station? On the other side, the blonde man kept his promise and actively went to the police station to surrender. The story also ends here. The value of a movie lies in its reputation, and the value of a movie review lies in its feelings. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie. How do you guys find this movie? Please comment below.